Welcome back to Click to Buy. I'm your host, Becca, and today we're joined by Tomasz Sledz, founder of Impact Media. With extensive experience as lead media buyer for both agencies and a nine-figure D2C brand, Tomasz specializes in crafting research-based direct response ads that deliver scalable results. He has a proven track record of driving growth for e-com brands, including those managing millions in ad spend each month. His innovative approach has helped businesses reduce their customer acquisition cost by up to 3 times by emphasizing the importance of creative volume testing. Today, we'll explore how e-com founders can effectively utilize meta ads to create compelling offers that drive traffic and conversions. So if you're ready to take your ad strategy to the next level, you're not going to want to miss this episode. And so that's why I'm so excited to welcome Tomasz to the podcast. Happy to have you here today on Click to Buy.
Amazing. Thank you for the invitation. It was a beautiful intro. You can keep going. I just listen about myself.
Oh, absolutely. If you want this recording on loop later to play for a little meditation when you're going to sleep, we can arrange that.
Yep. Sounds like a plan. Cool. Amazing.
We-
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, now that the audience knows a little bit about you, of course, I know a little bit more because I did some stalking and research before this podcast, but I would love to kind of give them an idea of your background and where all this comes from. So maybe to kick things off, could you tell me a little bit about your journey in advertising, what led you to start Impact Media, and what sort of core philosophy is driving this approach that you have to crafting these direct response ads?
Yes, absolutely. So I started my media buying journey pretty much back in 2018. 17. I remember I watched the video of Ty Lopez. You remember the famous one in the garage when he was with a Lambo? And I was like,
Yes.
okay, I mean, this guy, he knows something. So I started looking into it, and then I went into drop shipping and, just started running different e-com stores myself. Never got rich out of it. There were some periods when I had some good sales coming through. And, I fall in love with advertisement. During the COVID, I've got a job for the nine-figure brand. It's a e-commerce brand. They were scaling super fast.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, they made 120 million in revenue in 1 year. And it's all with the paid ads. We used to spend millions. And it was very challenging. And I worked there for months. And it was pretty much managing ads, Google Meta mostly, and learn a lot. And then I went into I work as a full-time media buyer for the advertising agency for 2.5 years. Last few months ago, I quit. The reason why I started the Impact Media is because I've seen that so many times when I used to do audits for the clients, I've seen that a lot of agencies, they were either unable to deliver the results, or when they did deliver the results, oftentimes they could do better. And what we've noticed, especially I learned this when I used to work for that big e-commerce brand and for the advertising agency, when we had really big clients over there. Everybody knows the names. I cannot speak some of this because about NDAs we sign and stuff, but the biggest name in the United States. We've noticed that oftentimes, you'd produce one ad and there would be a very good concept and that ad wouldn't perform. But then if you would do 10 different variations of that ads, you realize that out of 10, you would have 1 or 2 that actually would crash in it. So what we've noticed is that every time we, for example, created 100 ads, out of those 100 ads, 50 wouldn't work at all, or 60, maybe 30 would do okay-ish, and then we would have 10 of those ads that would be killing it. And we would have ads sometimes where I spent $100,000 on one ad, $200,000. I had, when I worked for the ecom brand, I remember we had some ads that spent nearly $800,000 on one video. $800,000, it's a lot of money to spend on one creative. But you just don't develop those creatives by luck. You have to kind of do a little bit of research, and you have to push the volume. And I truly believe that most of the agencies and most of the brands, they don't push enough volume to test. The one that do, they scale into 8-9 figures. And that was my philosophy. Okay, let's help those brands do it, to test us the volume, research-based, direct response ads at scale. And that's how I created the business.
I love it. And here we are. Well, there's so many parts of that that I want to dissect, and I'm excited to kind of like break it down in the episode today. But head kind of first to the first part of your philosophy. What you started with was we noticed that there was like problems and challenges that these ecom brands were facing. So, from your experience with these high spending ad campaigns, what are some of the common challenges ecom brands face when using Facebook and meta ads, and how can they overcome these challenges?
So a lot of challenges. Sometimes the brands or the founders that do not have that much advertising experience, they sometimes think that when they hire the agency is bad because they haven't delivered the results. Where the reality is that sometimes, and I would say pretty much very often, is that the offer isn't too compelling. So I always say to all my clients that it's always a combination of three. You have to have your offer that is very, very powerful. You have to have sales funnel that's converting cold traffic into the buyers, and then the ads at the end that are research based, ideally, the research
Yeah.
based because you just do ads that are copy competitors and just try to use all the ideas. Sometimes it works, but if it doesn't target your ideal market, it's not sometimes the best way to scale. So I would say that oftentimes is that the companies struggle with those advertising campaigns because they might be doing everything right on the advertising. They might be getting
Mhm.
angles, creatives right, but the problem is that sometimes the offer is pretty weak and people just do not really care. Or the perceived value versus price is not balanced. So sometimes you have to do something to improve that. For example, I give you the idea. I have one client of
Yeah.
mine, and he owns two businesses, and I work with him on not the e-commerce brand, but he also owns the e-commerce brand, and it's
Mhm.
seven-figure e-commerce brand. And for example, I've audited the account this week, and I've noticed that they have the agency running the ads, which is cool, but they push in one product, and the product
Mhm.
costs £40, 40 British pounds, and they have a bundle that costs £55 but has free product. So it's £15 more, but you have a free product and it's very nice introductory offer for the new people to come in. So it's
Mhm.
interesting, but when you have a look at the acquisition cost on two offers, you realize that the most expensive one, because it's bundled, it's actually driving cheaper conversions than the cheaper one, right? Because the
Yeah.
perceived value is way higher versus the price. So sometimes you really have to split test outside of the ads and you have to make sure, okay, like one thing, like I have a friend of mine, Mike, who's building the landing pages, and the way that before he builds a landing page, he always called the customers. When he starts working with a client, he will pick up the phone or book the calls with the clients, and he'll ask them the questions. Why did you buy? What did frustrate you? What you didn't like about the business? What did you like? And out of those answers, sometimes you know where the problem is. Sometimes it's not the ad. Sometimes people will tell you, I think the price is too high. Okay. So sometimes you just have to speak with your customers to find out.
Absolutely. Thank you for that great example. Also, I love that, like in this example you've given of this audit you did, like they already had this offer on their site. So you're just saying maybe you can pivot to featuring this a bit more because people are liking the bundle, which is already something you've worked out with your pricing or value strategies. So interesting that sometimes it's just like that shift in perspective or testing out what you already have. Also, how in the intro as well with this creative volume testing, how you discussed like you make this one really expensive video, you're going to want to try different ways of approaching that creative or the different hooks to see what will resonate because maybe there is that like gold in there. It's just figuring out exactly what is missing for that customer. So thank we already have so much to chat about. So we've heard a little bit about like how to build an offer, but once somebody kind of figures out, okay, we have an offer, we kind of know what works, what are some of the most effective ad formats you've seen for driving conversions? Do you have any examples of like a campaign that's performed really well that you've done recently?
So regarding the ad formats, this
Uh,
is the interesting one, because when you look inside the e-com space, a lot of the time you will see that the videos are pretty short oftentimes. Yes, a lot of e-com brands, they will be pushing
mhm,
a lot of static images and a lot of videos. And yeah, those tend to perform the best usually. Split test
mhm,
and a lot of different statics. There's a lot of different concepts that we've been doing, and one element that I can give to your audience just to help them out when they build in the
yeah,
ads that we've noticed is that having the biggest impact is the headline. And so when I create, the way that I work now with my clients is this: I create the design, one design, and then we split test multiple headlines. And I give you the example of this. It's funny, it's weird, it's funny example. 2 years ago, I saw an ads for a very big company. It's a SaaS, it's $100 million company. It's not e-commerce, but it doesn't really matter. It's just the point of we've been bringing new customers for that SaaS business, and we tested. For example, they did a video themselves when they spent, I think, $50,000 on a video. It was very professional in studio, actors. It was like wow. And we did static images that cost us maybe $10 to make. And so we did a lot of these static images with different headlines, and we found the two headlines out of 20 that performed so well that I remember we used those headlines on all the other videos, and we spent millions of ads. There was like one particular headline that we found that was performing really well. So they spent $50,000 on making the video, and we spent $50 on making the static images, and static images outperformed the video. So this is why I'm always saying it's not just about the quality, it's also about the volume and testing different ideas, because you never know where you're gonna tap into the gold. So yeah, so this is the interesting example, I guess. Yeah, this is a good one.
I love that, especially like the comparison, because I know some people tuning in are just kind of getting started with a business or just starting to scale. And a lot of people are going to have questions for like, where can I put like the most kind of value? You have lots of costs that get there to getting your
Yeah,
name out there as a business, but interesting to see that something like just testing a bunch of different static images, but with changing the headline, you're able to find
yeah,
that probably save the business a lot of money by now knowing what's going to work. And those
that's
headlines
it.
clearly must have hit something.
Yeah, and if you can implement as well a humor and just make the ads a little bit funny, we found this to be
Mhm,
performing really well. And sometimes a long format. I've noticed a lot of e-commerce brands try to make it short, short, short. But like
mhm.
I actually have some e-commerce brands, seven figures now, that we run, and some of the best performing ads were the long format. We have a special script that we developed. It's like a nine steps framework that we use, and usually those videos anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes, really well performance, oftentimes better than the 15, 30, 45 seconds videos, because it gives people a lot of different things to learn. So yeah, sometimes you just have to split this. I don't think there is an ideal format. It all depends on the
Mhm,
brand. Some businesses needs a little bit of more education than the others, right? If you are
mhm.
selling, probably like a skincare brand, you might want to have a longer format, because you might want to explain why your skincare product is unique compared to what's there on the market. But if you're selling something like very, I don't know, soft drink, probably it might not need much of education, because it's just a simple
Yeah,
product. So I think you always have to balance out and try a lot of things and fail a lot of time to find the winners, and then focus on the winners and expand.
absolutely. Well, I'd love to have like more insight into how you kind of go through this testing process. Can you elaborate a little bit more on like how you go through this creative volume testing, like why you think it's so important and any kind of tips you have when like implementing this on a campaign?
Yeah. So usually the easiest way to start, that we've been using this for years now, this process, and I learned it in a previous agency that I worked for. So
Mhm,
we, for example, like we would do creative research. So we'd have a look into different audiences, and then we would develop a static creatives with different headlines, like I just discussed, and we would test them out, and we would see which headlines would be doing the best performance, and then those headlines we would turn into different concepts. So we would expand on those headlines. So if you have three different headlines, let's say you have 10 different headlines, and you batch them three, so you have 9 headlines in total, okay? And you see that each of those three are targeting different group of people. One might be targeting males, females, or like or different demographics, whatever you do, whatever your research is. And if you see there's one group of people that performs the best in one headline, this is where I would expand first to tap into the gold, right? So you can take that headline, you can turn it into a video script, focusing
mhm.
on that one, right, headline. So this is usually what we would be doing, and it tends to perform pretty well. And you test different ads with those headlines. Like for example, one thing that we also do that performs well, like when you have the videos, you just add the headline on the videos. So you can create a lot of videos, but you can add the headline on the top, and sometimes that would bring a really good performance. for a lot of brands that we work with in e-commerce and outside of the e-commerce as well, because a lot of the other ads I run was outside of e-com, and you'd be surprised. Like it's working across because it's just about capturing the people attention. It's not about the industry specifically. So yeah, this is what we do usually, and we test quite a lot, and then we expand on what is working, and then you scale pretty much because you have more content that is already proven to work. So
Well, I know one of the ideas you mentioned previously for getting like ideas for what could be in those headlines was calling your customers. Are there any other sources of inspiration that you found that have worked really well? Because I imagine if you're making like 100 different variations, you're trying to pull from a couple different hooks or pain points or whatever it is that you're selling.
yeah, so we would try, like for example, like the problems, calling out the problems, calling out the audience, calling out specific demographic. Sometimes it's just we would start with desired outcome, you know.
Hmm.
So there's so many ways that you could do it. It just all depends on the actual product that you're looking to sell, because
Hmm.
some of the products might not be solving a massive problem, like
True.
the soft drink or something like that. It might not necessarily be a problem solving, but it might be all about like feeling really refreshed. So it might be all about the benefits and like the hype about the product. So you just it all depends on the brand, but yeah, you definitely want to split test a different concept, different ideas. So the more that you can split test and you can try, uh, it will help you, because oftentimes you would see, like, even if you look on the soft metrics, which are not super relevant, but
Hmm.
even earlier, when you start testing, you'll see like out of 10 headlines, you might have one that has a one headline will have 1% click-through rate, and the
Hmm.
one at the bottom, the worst performing one, might have 0.3. So, if you wouldn't test a top, if you only have three, you might have the worst one a little bit better and a little bit better, but you might miss the top three or four.
Hmm.
So I will always say that the volume is as important as the quality of the creatives. Yeah.
I love that, especially because I think like that's always a struggle when you're working in like marketing for a brand. Like there always is this pressure to have everything feel like super perfect. And so
Yeah.
like they always say like quality over quantity, but ideally in this case you can do both. You can have some great looking ads, but also that super big volume. I guess I also want to like touch on another point you mentioned, of course, which is like creating that compelling offer. So, of course, in the example that you mentioned, like you had a friend who already had some kind of offer set up. Have you ever had a situation where like you've helped brands figure out like what the best offer is? Do you have any advice for how like business owners can think about that?
Yeah, it's pretty much all the time. I
Uh-huh.
actually focus on all of those things, from the landing page
Hmm.
to the offer to the ads, because like I have one client now. We have a product that we've been trying to sell. Like previous agency tried to sell, they were unsuccessful. We tried to sell, we are unsuccessful a little bit. You're
Hmm.
not gonna tap into gold all the time. So it's proven to work. They have thousands of customers, but it's very difficult to sell this product to the cold audience. So usually the journey is like there's an audience that buying all the things. They come into the business and they buy the subscription. What I'm talking about is subscription. So it's very hard to sell to the cold audiences, but once they're inside the business, they might buy it. But sometimes what you could do, you could like give them a free trial. You could offer like I'm a big fan of stacking up the value. So for the e-commerce specifically, like if you could create different bundles, you know,
Hmm.
because you don't always have to like lower the price. People feel like to improve the offer, you have to give a discount. It's not
Hmm.
necessarily the case, but if you can help your audience to solve the problem that they have faster in a better way, that's improving the offer too. Sometimes it might be money back guarantee if you have really good product. So what you could do, like the one example that I just gave earlier, was okay, you have a single product at 39.99, but you can bundle this up with another two products and sell it for extra 10, 15 pounds dollars more, but the perceived value goes from here to here and the price goes from here to here. So you massively increase the perceived value, increase the price a little bit, but it's still better than the previous offer, because previous offer could be in here. So when it's in here, when it's equal, so they say, okay, it's a fair value for money. They might be
Hmm.
like, you might be selling, you might be scaling, but if you can improve the perceived value, but when people land in, they're like, oh, that's really good, let
Yeah.
me try it. You don't necessarily have to discount. Sometimes you have to increase the price or give more, because that's the thing. Let's just say you bundle something up. Maybe you do not make more money on the bundle specifically, the margins are the same, but if you can increase the conversion rate on that
Mhm.
bundle, boom, there you are. Sometimes that will help you. Or so, and it's not only that, but sometimes you can help them to solve the problem faster, right? Because if you have a free products instead of one, then if that's gonna speed up the process of them getting the results because
Mhm.
of, yeah, they have more products now, that's also the benefit, right? So yeah, I would say that it's always worth to work on the on trying to position your offer as good as possible, and I would do a research, look into what competitors do, and try to improve what they doing, what I can do better. Sometimes it's just let me tell you something. I used to work as a chief marketing officer as well last year for a seven-figure brand that scaled really fast. They went from brand new business to £1 million in sales in 6 months,
Wow.
and all with ads. And the way that they improved the offer as well, they gave people a free ebook. So they were selling a physical product that was about $100, but apart from that product, they also introduced an ebook that was talking about very specific issue related to the product. So people can kind of like use the product, experience, and get the results. But on the top of that, they will also learn all the things that's gonna help them to get to the desired outcome even better, because they can change the diet, they can do some other stuff that's gonna help
Mhm.
them. And that will increase the conversion rate. And the ebook doesn't cost anything because it's free knowledge. You can literally just record yourself, package this as a video course, and say, hey, this is worth £30. You can get it for free when you buy it today. Just as simple as for some businesses. Yeah.
I think that's a great example. All of your examples of adding value also seem to hint on that other goal of businesses to try to create that repeat returning customer, and like having a health related. For example, I saw a brand recently that has an athletic fitness product, and now they have like free courses you can do and follow along. So it's all
Yeah.
about those little things that they're adding, which is hopefully keeping them top of mind so that that next month you'll buy it again, or you'll
Yes.
continue to use it or tell your friends. So I think these are all great advice. As you mentioned before, of course, it depends on what it is that you are selling and the complexity, but I think these are all things to think about for people who are shaping their ad strategy.
Absolutely. Just to add quickly before we move
Hmm.
on, sometimes very good idea is to just have a community. So
Mm.
with every purchase that somebody makes, you give them access to a free Facebook group, or school community or something else. And like I used to work for that brand I told you that we're making 100
Hmm.
million. It was in a pet industry, and
Okay.
like for example, we'd give people access to the Facebook group, and we're like, hey, if you have a problem with your pet, you can ask us question. We have qualified people
Yeah.
who can answer, and they can help you. So you also, like, you're selling the product, but if somebody doesn't experience the results with your product that they want to experience, you can help them outside of it and give them more advice, so they are more attached to the brand, really, right? Because they're like, hey, they care
Hmm.
about me. I bought it, I'm not getting the results necessarily as quick maybe, and they still willing to help me outside of the product. That's important for a lot of brands as well, especially when you supplement area, like selling
Yeah.
supplements, this type of stuff, like weight loss products, like, this could help a lot. Yeah.
Well, that is a great thing to bring up. Maybe we'll have to have you back on for another episode to just chat all things building a community, because I think that's something so many brands can learn from,
Yeah.
and such like a powerful way to keep in touch with your community and have like a really fast way to test out ideas and like see what the interest is and tease things or get feedback from like those champions that are really into your product, really obsessed, or people who you can change their opinion.
Yeah, because sometimes you can introduce people to that group
Hmm.
that are not your customers yet, but you have a customers in that group. And sometimes
Hmm.
when you engage with those existing customers and they share the experience, sometimes those non customers be like, hell yeah, I mean, these people are getting those results, but let me buy it, because it's a real social proof, right? So I think that if you're an e-com brand and you do not build a community, you are missing out big time. Because even sourcing creatives, you know,
Hmm.
this is another thing, like the UGC. Like there was a rise of the UGC. I feel like the UGC is gonna fall in the next couple of years. I don't think the UGC is gonna be as efficient as it was, because people know a lot of the time it's just lie. That those
Yeah.
creators are being paid now. People are catching up. They understand those stuff. So
Hmm.
if you actually have a community, you can ask people who are real customers to give you the ads. And if they love the brand, they'll be like, I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's so good. Like literally. Yeah.
And I love that you also mentioned like UGC and kind of like the rise and fall, but also like how something like that you could source your creative pretty inexpensively, which is a
Mm.
nice segue to my next question on budgeting. So, for store owners who are kind of hesitant to invest really heavily in like ads or creative, do you have any advice regarding like your budgeting for these campaigns? Like, how can you make the most if you have a more limited ad spend?
What I would say to you is this. I believe that ads are really amplifier. Ads
Hmm.
will amplify your business. They will. But if your business is crap, it will amplify the crap, you know?
Yeah.
So the thing is that sometimes when I speak with the business founders, I realize that they look at the advertisement as a solution for them not getting sales.
Mm,
Ads are not the solution for you not getting sales. If you're not getting sales, it could be because your business sucks.
mhm.
Sorry. It could be the reason. It could be that your product is bad, it's overpriced, it's low quality. So you have to think first and sort out those problems. And once you get like, because you don't need ads. If you're starting out, if you have no budget, don't spend money on ads, please. You know, get your basics right. Make sure your product is good. Make sure your website is good. Make sure your offer is good. Make sure your organic content is right. Just get those first. Start getting some sales. Start building some community, because with TikTok and Instagrams, short stories, you don't really need ads to begin with. You can get
Mhm.
those creatives, and once you do everything organically, you will see what videos perform well, what's getting views. If you see that you have a video, let's say you produce a day, okay,
Mhm.
and you are consistent and you create the ads as a founder, and you have 30 videos in a month organically, and you see that out of 30 you have five that got like thousands or hundreds or millions of impressions perhaps, you know that this organic content could do well on ads. So before you invest money into the expensive agency, UGC or whatever, just take what already works organically and try to turn it. Just put some money behind it. Just give some money to the platform. Say, hey,
Take a
can you
little
push it a little
boost.
bit? And just try it and just see if that's gonna perform. And when you're in this position, when you see that it's working, then perhaps invest some more money. Hire the agency, let them do it, work with them on the creators, because yeah, you don't really need the agency to begin with, I believe. Oftentimes, like if you're a founder and you really like bootstrap and you try to like pull it off the ground, you could run ads yourself to begin with. Like there are so much YouTube knowledge, like even people like me, I have this power hour that I do with the companies.
Mhm.
People can hire me for an hour and I can just go on a call with them. They can pay me for an hour rather than pay thousands of dollars for the agency. And I tell them, hey, let's do this. They have a whole blueprint and it might cost them $300, and they're like, okay, let me implement. It's pretty easy to begin with. So you don't
Yeah.
really need to spend a lot of money upfront. I think you can do it on a small budget too, but I suggest it's very important that you focus on the basics first and get them sorted before you run ads. Yeah.
Absolutely. Otherwise, it sounds like you can be wasting valuable money that you could be spending on improving your product
Yeah.
or other ways that you can improve your customer experience and keep the customers you do have happy.
Yeah. Correct. 100%.
Absolutely. Well, since you are an expert in all things ecom advertising in this space, I would also love to have like your advice or outlook on what trends or changes do you think ecom founders should be aware of for the future of paid advertising?
Yes. Okay, I genuinely think that the UGC, like I mentioned earlier, because if you look at any agency that's in ecom space, it's all UGC, 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 UGC. I feel like the content creators will stay there. I think it will be there, but I genuinely think that if you could focus on like community building and making sure that you can actually have ads that are legit from your people and create a lot of hype about your product, it's gonna help you a lot. And also organic content as well. I feel like there was a time, in last like few years, pretty much since COVID, was beautiful time.
Hmm.
When you could literally just sell garbage and you could get rich because the ads were performing so well back then. But since ads are becoming more expensive, it's really important that you focus on the basics and you focus on, you know, getting the actual organic content as well, because it's such a good opportunity, with TikTok shops and all the Instagram, Facebook shorts, like having like YouTube shorts even, so you can get a lot of impressions organically. You don't even need to run ads. So I feel like it's definitely the brands that can balance out, that's gonna be very like 360 oriented, that's gonna understand everything from like sales funnel to the offer creation to running, creating good ads, but also organic content. Those will be the ones that's gonna be really growing. If you're gonna have just the just a company, just the ecom brand that's gonna focus purely on like paid ads only, once the paid ads gonna, the cost is gonna go up. At some point, you won't be able to advertise anymore profitably. So it's very
Mhm.
important that you just focus all around 360 approach, and you make sure the organic is there and you grow the whole business, and you have a community, and it's word of mouth as well. So it's like everything really, more than just like ads as it used to be in the past.
Absolutely. Well, we are rounding out near the end of our episode, but I cannot let you go. This is, of course, click to buy. So I always need to ask my guests for their click worthy tip. So this is a short phrase or piece of advice that you can give to other people in the e commerce space out there on how they can improve their customer journey.
Improve the customer journey. So the regarding the paid ads, the way that I just give you the example of that ecom brand I work for. That's they basically went from 0 to 20 million to 60 million to 120 million. So they went from in 3 years from 0 to 120 million in revenue, yearly revenue, right? So I learned this approach over there, and it was beautiful. So when you run in ads, depending on the product, because some products are very easy to sell, they don't need a lot of education.
Mhm.
But for a lot of them, you really need to think on how to optimize your sales funnel to really tap into those cold audiences and convince them that your product is the best. So what I mean, for example, is that
Mhm.
the best companies, the way that they do it, and they really scale like to like 100 mil, they do it this way. You have an ad, and the ad talks about a specific problem. Okay. Then you have a landing page that follows up on that problem. And then you have a very good high converting offer. So the offer is beautiful, like we just discussed here. And when you run different angles, then you also have different landing pages that are very congruent with those ads. That's the best way to do it. It's difficult, it might be expensive, it's time consuming, but it's the best way to turn the website visitors into a buyers. Because a lot of the time, even now, I'm still, even some of my clients, when I
Mhm.
onboarded them, they were still running at 7 figures. They still run ads to product pages. So you see the ad, and you have like, one ad is talking, for example, about one problem. The other one's talking about second problem, third problem, and they all sending traffic to the product page. But on the product page, you're not gonna learn a lot, right? You just see the
Mhm.
pricing, the product, and general information, some FAQ, some social proof. But if you have an ad that's performing really well, if you can build a landing page that is fully explaining that problem and why that problem happens, agitate on it, present your product as a solution, you're more likely to sell it for that specific audience. So I would always say that if you have ads that performing, or angles that perform, or there's a specific problem that attracts better quality audience to your funnel that converts better, try to create a very congruent funnel for them so they can move through even and follow up with the emails. Because if you have
Mhm.
specific flows for that landing page that also follow up on this, it's going to be the best thing that you can do. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you heard it here first. And thank you for that great explanation. I think that's something that a lot of brands out there, if you're working on your strategy, this sounds like something to try. Well, it was such a pleasure having you on for the episode. Of course, I know where to find you online, but if anyone is listening in and they are like, wow, I really want more of Tomasz's advice, where's the best place that they can find you in your business?
Yeah, I appreciate. The best way is to reach out directly on LinkedIn. You can just find me under my name, Tomasz Sledz, and
Mhm.
I'm happy to connect with anybody. So anybody who's listening to it, I always up for a chat with people. So yeah, if there's anybody who wants to have a chat, have some questions, please reach out. More than happy to have a coffee chat with anybody. It's all cool.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for popping on the episode. That's a wrap for today's episode of Click to Buy. A big thank you to Tomasz for sharing his tips on how to use paid ads for ecom success. Once again, I'm your host, Becca Anderson, coming at you from Instant Page Builder. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, let us know what you want to talk about in a future episode, and share it with all the fellow e-commerce enthusiasts in your network. Until next time, keep turning those clicks into buys.